This is leaning more into the super cute, probably don't want to have a waifu in it type game.
Yeah, kind of like don't roll 34 just because it'd be weird.
Shit. Sorry, I had to get up and do a thing real quick.
Have I'm not going to go looking.
Nope.
I'm just going to have the faith that it has been done.
Rule 34?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did I
If
know?
you if you missed it, I looked up the cover to Tunic and determined immediately based off of the cover that this is not a game that I want to have a waifu in.
Okay. Hopefully chat can hear me. I'm not paying attention to chat. I'm not doing it tonight. I don't care how this turns out. I'm going real old school Sons of Tree Air where we're just flying by the seat of our fucking pants, boys.
As opposed to
When I try.
okay.
Because it's funnier to me if we spend all this time defining socialism and then you can't even get the definition. Because then they'll never know because they're not going to listen to it anyway.
That is true.
Yeah. You know. All right. So with that, I'm Dan Cohen. I'm joined by Jank Engels and Michael Jordan Peterson. Say hello, boys.
Hello, boys.
Hi, boys, dry boys. MJP has gone AWOL.
I sent him on operations.
All right, good, good. Yes. Always be on operations. ABOO. Abu.
Abu. They
That,
told me throw it back, Abu.
yeah.
That's what the kids are saying these days, right?
I think. It sounds right to me. I don't know shit, though, about kids.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it
So
totally is.
what's the topic today, Doctor?
Well, as the resident metaphysician, I have been challenged to define a word.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Well, to make an apple pie from scratch, one must first invent the universe, right?
correct.
So,
Also, putting this out here, that's like some dumb
Oh,
motherfucker off the street going, bet Gordon Ramsay can't fucking hard boil an egg. Okay, all right, fucking challenge accepted. You're gonna feel real stupid in 5 minutes, and I'm gonna feel real stupid because I took your challenge. Nobody walks out of this feeling smart. So let's. Oh,
I'm still here,
okay.
it's still here.
even if you can't hear me. I think I'm having different technical difficulties.
You are having technical difficulties, man. We're gonna, you know what? We're gonna use what meager budget the show has. We're getting you outfitted.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I have an old kangaroo. I have an old
Listen,
kangaroo. I'm gonna mail it to you, and then you're gonna. All you have to do is put Discord on it, hook it up to a TV, jam a headset into it, or jam a mic.
I've already mailed Michael Jordan Peterson like pounds and pounds of blow. What more do you need?
But you can't actually get Discord on Pounds of Below.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm pretty sure that's how I'm connected right now.
no, that's not a supported platform for Discord. I'm sorry.
Are you sure?
Yeah, bags upon bags of cocaine is not a means by which you can log on to the internet.
Well, what the heck have you been doing with all that blow then, Michael Jordan Peterson?
how to make a living.
Yeah, and I noticed that living does not include buying a headset. You know,
This capitalism is rough, huh?
yeah, it sure
All that
is.
blow, and I'm still.
Oh man. All right. So
I blame
anyway,
the. I blame,
oh no, go ahead. I thought we were done with the blow jokes, but we can waste a few more minutes on cocaine jokes. That's fine.
how to blow and go because you just keep driving.
All right, that one was good. I like that. I like a good rhyme. Very good. Got my ass. Got my
Yeah.
ass, sir. I underestimated your cocaine jokes.
Super fresh.
Super fresh. Straight
Okay,
out of
he's
the
reloaded.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, yeah.
All right. So again, the challenge issued by the right to me, a metaphysician, was to
By the
define.
alt-right, but not that alt-right.
He is an alternative to a normal right winger, but I wouldn't call him a member of the alt right.
Yeah, that's what I said. The alt-right, but not that alt-right.
Right.
So basically, just all right.
And here we go, kids. So let's define socialism. The first
Is that
thing,
where I have no iPhone?
not at all.
Ah, damn it.
I know this is gonna disappoint you. The first thing we need to be cognizant of is our good old friend George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Hegel.
A Hegelian
Yeah, Hegelian.
dialectic.
A good Hegelian dialectic. No, we have to understand the process of dialectics. All right, it's a methodology of analysis. Really, no more, no less. But it's going to give us a means by which to define something, both by what it is and what it isn't. All right. We're going to apply dialectics. That's, if you're unfamiliar with dialectics, very, very simple. You have thesis, right? That's the thing. You have the antithesis or antithesis. That is the negation of the thing, the negative of the thing, the opposite of the thing. And then you have the synthesis, which is the combination of the thing and its own negation. All right? You hear Marx talk about contradictions a lot. This is where he got it from. This is exactly where. There's no point in fucking pretending he didn't. This is exactly where he gets it from, right? He takes Hegel a step further, but that's the basics of the dialectic. Okay, very, very truncated understanding of it, because you don't really need to understand it beyond that. You're looking at a thing, you're looking at its opposite, and then you're looking at how they merge in various forms to various degrees to produce a synthesis. Okay? So, we have to wind our clock back. Oh, let's say, for the sake of argument, a good 1,000 years or so. All right? We have what is called monarchy as an original ruling order. It has feudalism as its machinery of economics. Under feudalism, there are certain social relations. Those social relations include a form of production that puts a worker very much in the thick of the totality of production, right? So if you're a farmer, you tend to live on the farm. You're probably a serf or some sort of indentured servant that's forced to live on that farm. If you make hooves for horses, right? Or not hooves, you make horseshoes for hooves. I'm sorry. I'm a little tired. And again, I'm not taking this entirely too seriously. Which should instill confidence when I tell you the answer. But if you make hooves, you see that process from beginning to end. You acquire the metal through simplified exchange. Then you go ahead and you smelt the metal, and then you shape the metal, and then you fit the metal onto the fucking horse, right? You, from beginning to end for the most part. If you mine, you pretty much do all the steps of mining, which include but are not limited to building your own shelter, creating your own tools, and going into the fucking mines, and then delivering the goods to the market to be sold. You're pretty much doing all of it. In that process, there became a middleman class of a merchant. And that's different than the old school merchants who were kind of ad hoc. Okay? From those merchants, we eventually grow into mercantilism, which is primitive, a very, very primitive form of capitalism. All right? From there, we move into what we understand today as capitalism first in its pre-modern form. That's, largely at the time of the Industrial Revolution and the time immediately after. And then as our ability to master energy, right, in the form of just more efficient ways to burn oil, all the other different forms of energy we have. I'm doing a very truncated again. don't get too bogged down in the dumb part of the details, right? But as we are able to then scale upwards exponentially, we move into the modern era of capitalism, something like we'd see in the very late 1800s up to today, right? Just massive economies of scale. We can supply things to 7 billion people. Socialism arrives after, in the form we mostly would associate with socialism, arrives around the 1880s, 1890s, right? These words are kicked around as early as the late 1700s, but they're really, really kind of truncated forms. If you will, a socialist in the 1700s looks vastly different than a socialist of today, right? Or even our 1920 counterparts who still look different than us. They look more like us than somebody in the 1770s, 1780s would when these words start getting kind of kicked around, right? So the first thing to take note, socialism is its own synthesis. It is the reaction to capitalism's contradictions. It is one possible alternative. But what actually makes up socialism? The critical feature, I would argue, is that it is an economic model designed around, or intended to be designed around, the masses. Okay? The workers, the proletariat. It's for workers. And again, we need to take our history lesson. The original form of economics that existed for the nobility. The king first, and then the lesser nobles who came under them proportionally. The creation of all wealth was under their purview. To some extent, it was shared. Shared upwards, not downwards, right? So if you own something, your lord owns something, your duke owns something, your king owns something. You all had ownership over the thing. Your lord owned things that your duke owned that your king owned. Your duke owned things that your king owned, and all things in the kingdom were owned by the king. It was his, right? So economic production is focused on feeding one individual person. Ultimately, all resources go to them. And the idea is essentially, if you're one of these aristocrats, you want to be the top of that pile or as close to the top of that pile as you possibly can. Makes sense. That's how you get more stuff, right?
Yeah.
So far, easy enough to understand. It's an upward redistribution of wealth. Well, in much the same way when we go from the merchants as a unified or knowledgeable class to mercantilism, which is that transitory period between capitalism and feudalism, these merchants started coming up with a different notion of individualism, if you will, or one, right? So they have an understanding worldview under monarchism in the West, which we'll broadly say goes from Persia to Europe, and the East, everything east of Persia to Japan. We can broadly say, it's not entirely perfect, but we can broadly say that there are two different notions that are very, very similar. We have the divine right of kings, which dominates what we'll call the West. That is, that the king is a living representation of a god, either as an offspring or just the actual god as we move towards the Near East. Or we have the mandate of heaven, which means the individual at the top has been ordained by heaven to be in charge. All right? Two slightly different constructions. One's, I think, a little bit of superficial humility by comparison. One is just sheer arrogance. But ultimately, between the two, we have an idea that one person sits atop all of it underneath heaven's purview. Well, the mercantilists, these early, if you will, proto-libertarians, come up with a different worldview. It is still about an individual, but it's about every unique individual, right? And the determinant factor should not be birthright, but by ability to acquire. This is what we can call the ideological underpinning of profit acquisition. Socialism acts as a reaction to that. Instead of it being about the divine mandate of heaven, right? About one person succeeding uber alles and that being taken for granted as correct. Instead of that, And instead of everybody being in competition with each other and the winner naturally being the one who can get their hands on the most stuff, the wealth of the world ought to be for everyone. It is a collectivist ideology. That does not mean that collectivism is inherently some sort of morally superior thing. We're not talking in moral terms right now and oughtn't be. All right? Because I can think of one other collectivist ideology that is complete shit. Yeah, there's one. There's one I can.
Does it involve mustaches?
Yeah, it involves certain kinds of mustaches you're not allowed to have anymore.
Damn.
That's also a collectivist ideology wherein all is fed to the state and the state is all, right?
I'm just making sure I'm still listening.
Yeah, and you're doing wonderfully. But the defining feature of socialism is the idea of collectivism. The second will be in lieu of profit acquisition, right? Profit for the sake of enriching one person, which is modeled after the feudalist property relationships ultimately. The idea is then that all are supposed to share in the bounty of society, that since we're all participants in society, since we all create a portion of that wealth should be proportionally returned to us. We should get our share too, right?
Right.
And if I were to be very, very truncated, if you were looking for a grand abstract notion of socialism, that's it. That's all we're talking about here, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's really it. There's nothing all that. There's nothing all, when we're talking about these things, and this is why I kind of hate doing this. We're talking about these things as a pure abstraction right now. So to pure abstraction, you have to look for the underlying features. The underlying features for all variants of capitalism, all flavors of capitalism, is a rigid hierarchy system that benefits winners of the system, right?
Right.
That creates a competitive atmosphere and a winner through the system. This is modeled after, but a modified, distinctly modified from, even though it's modeled after it, it's still distinct from it, that same bloodthirsty power struggle that existed under aristocracy and feudalism, where acquisition was meant to be for God, which is represented by the king, right? When you figure out, it's no mistake that when you figure out the king might be fucking full of bullshit about being the son of God, then it's a lot easier to see yourself keeping that pie for yourself, right?
Right.
And these are philosophies of the individual. In this case, one of them is the most extreme form of individualism, monarchy, and then there is the wider form of individualism, capitalism. Socialism is a rejection of both. It is a collectivist ideology, and the prominent class, instead of being the aristocracy, instead of being the merchants, it is the people who make the stuff, the workers. That's it. That's all you're getting out of that.
Now, to build on that, right, or to be more interesting, I like what you said earlier, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The conversation that I think a lot of socialists get into is, where are we putting the floor at?
Right.
It's not a matter of like they're not fundamentally opposed, as most European models will show, to people making significant sums of wealth. There's an expectation that there is a floor that people won't go below.
Well, that's the thing, right? So when you start talking about flavors get interesting. Because now we're talking about how the abstraction hits the material world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can get into that, but when people are like, define socialism, that's all socialism is. That's all. The only definition you really need is a rejection of monarchist individualism, capitalist individualism, and the prominent class that should get the wealth is the people who make it. It's the workers. That's all it is. That because when you talk about capitalism in an abstract, I can say to high holy heaven, capitalism does this, capitalism functions like that, but I'm only describing symptoms of capitalism that are produced when capitalism hits the material world. I'm not talking about the theory in its abstraction, right?
Right.
And that's an important distinction I also want to talk about too. If we're talking about socialism as an abstraction, All flavors of socialism, actual socialism, fit the bill. Again,
Yes.
there is one collectivist ideology that likes to pervert the word socialism and essentially lie about it by changing the definition.
Oh, they use that word a lot.
Yeah, they love that word once they've perverted it, and they are collectivist, but they are not about empowering the worker. They're about empowering the state, and by proxy, whoever governs the state. I don't want to say the F word here, but we know what they are, right?
Oh, we know.
We know. And again,
Only.
fucking fash. Anywho, I said it. Yeah, so that's it. That's why if you're like a conservative right now, you can tune the fuck out because I just defined it. That's every form of socialism. Actual socialism, utopian socialism, communist socialism, anarchist socialism, fucking European market socialism, enhanced cooperative market socialism, like I would describe Ben Burgess practices, authoritarian state socialism like China practices, all of it. That's the fundamental. Those are the two uniting features that none of them can escape. Right? So if you're, if you're a conservative, click out now. Click it. Fuck it. You're done. That's it. That's all you needed to know. You came here. You got what you're going to get. You're done. You've got a succinct definition of socialism. So when you're arguing with a socialist, start by arguing against those points. Frankly, you'll do better. I just did you a favor because now you can look like you're not a fucking dipshit when you say 1,000 times, define socialism. That's it. The one place Richard Wolff fucked up is he did not define socialism in that succinct way. It's the only thing he fucked up when debating Destiny. I'm throwing it out there. My man did wonderful. He did excellent. I loved him scolding him, but ultimately, it's a worker-focused collectivist ideology. That's it. That's it. That's all you need. It doesn't matter where. That's what unifies all of these various things. And then we can debate to high holy heaven the merits of each one. God knows that's all the left does. But that's it. That's what you're dealing with. It is a reaction to the individualism of capitalism. So we're gonna give the right wingers a second to step out. 5, 4, 3, 2. What time is it? Oh yeah, we got plenty of time. Jenks, spice it up, buddy. Spice it up for me. Hit me with questions. Let's have a discussion. Let's do it. Pick your brand.
So there's obviously various flavors of our socialist brethren here, right?
Sure is.
Sure.
We've historically included me in those lists, so it's always a fun spot.
Well,
how would you say that socialism, because obviously, even although they fucking hate to say it, the U.S. does practice a form of socialism as well.
Well,
right?
It has characteristics of socialism in it, sure.
It can't let the market just do whatever it wants because you see what happens. It implodes.
Yeah, it literally booms and busts itself into into extinction.
Well,
I mean, what are you doing?
There's nothing from where I'm sitting, there's nothing not capitalist about regulation. That's just framing the rules of the game. So I never attribute regulation to socialism. That's not it. Socialists certainly do regulate it, but that's not a unique feature of socialism by comparison. And I wouldn't call that a socialist characteristic.
I think when I was getting kind of the reformist position, the top 10 position, or democratic socialist position, where they want to keep the capitalism, but they want to regulate it.
Yeah, well, that's your European model. That's your
Yeah, but we were having a discussion, so I was just bringing that into it.
Yeah, well, that is, you know what, though? It's succinctly different than a reformist like Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren's the pay your taxes, the people whose solution to everything is pay your taxes, that's not socialism. That wasn't,
No.
I agree, pay your taxes, but I don't think any of us are going to say yeah, that's definitely distinctly socialist, right? That's one of those confusing points that always seems to get muddled in. It's like, oh, they want you to pay more taxes, must be socialist. Like, not at all. That's capitalism.
We're
Baby.
bringing.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
The idea was that we were bringing in some of those confusing points
Yeah,
to try to clarify things.
absolutely. Please do.
Like, for example, for the longest time, like communists didn't really have a name. They were just technically socialists. So before you would have heard democratic socialist, and that had a very different meaning from what it has today.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you hear when you hear those basically conservatives on TV, the blue checks, you have to understand that, like, when they say socialist, they mean a very different thing than we do.
Yeah, they a lot of their problem is they're trying to define these things through a very, very distinctly
Disingenuous lens.
Yeah, the big term is like if you're a hard enough core right wing or right cultural Marxism, there around every economic structure there develops a culture. So the idea of a cultural Marxism is somewhat of a reductive thought process, but we should expect to have modifications of the culture based on worker-centric versus owner-centric modes of existence. Like I don't.
We have a very different terminology for that. That's cultural Bolshevism, which is just basically Nazi bait.
Well, yeah, that's the Nazi rejection of it, right? Cultural Bolshevism. They also call it. They use cultural Marxism too.
Yeah, they do that a lot.
I've heard a lot of cultural Marxism now, but I think they avoid the other one just because it's a longer, more complicated name that forces them to actually know something.
Yeah, you have to know how to spell Bolshevik.
Yeah. Well, you have to care about politics outside of the last 10 years.
Right. That can be a very difficult feat. That can be a very, very uphill fight for those people. So
we'll see. We'll see in 10 years of how these Ukraine heroes are going.
Yeah, that'll probably have an effect on it.
Yeah, that will certainly have an effect on it. Let's not.
Can you give us, Dr. Dan Cohen?
Sure.
Let's give us and our wonderful listeners a couple of quick tips for whenever they are looking at someone who's being called a socialist. How to identify and differentiate that from our slightly funnier mustached name stealers.
Fair enough.
So this is something that happens a lot, right? Especially I think I would suspect at people's homes, especially the listeners' homes, things like that, where someone who is politically different from you says, you're a fascist, you're a socialist, and uses those terms interchangeably because they are certain they mean the same thing.
Well,
you're dropping again.
Oh, sorry. I said that's the thing. They love to masquerade around like they're not, like they actually are something else. That's part of the issue of it, because nationalism and socialism are totally incompatible.
Yeah, they're totally opposite systems.
They're put in the state above even human life once you hit nationalism, which is the exact opposite of what a socialist would do.
Yeah,
We're back to defining things with their antithesis.
Right. Well, we can see the rejection is because like it's not even like I don't know how best to describe it. Like even in like if you apply another layer right on top of socialism, like I said, China 100% practices authoritarian socialism. The underlying economic model is still ultimately something a bit further than the Europeans would go, and yet wholly and distinctly within line with socialism, right? They have the people who make big profits, but they set a floor price on what Chinese existence can be. Like there's a goal to make sure that 1.3 billion people, a seventh of the world's population, do not fall into abject poverty or squalor, right? There's a baseline objective they're setting out to hit, and the methodology by which they do that, their next layer is an authoritarian communist regime. If we organize by force, then we should be able to overcome this particular problem. It's one of the it's one of the myriad of options to allow that to happen. And I'm not making a moral critique on it, because if you can feed 1.3 billion people, more or less, that's a feat I haven't accomplished. That's a feat America certainly has done everything in its power to not accomplish by design. So, in terms of that dynamic, right, if we were to say, like, is there anything good about the PRC? Absolutely. We're moving more away from socialism into political communism. But yeah, that would be one of the end goal. The reason you're doing all this for workers is to make sure their lives are better. What did they do? Let's take away starvation and medical ailments as best we can for 1.3 billion people. And they fucking are on that shit like a boss. So, more than any other place on the planet. So that's again, that is a direct example of one of the successes of socialism. These cruelties of humanity, human existence, they have alleviated two of them in a very real sense, better than any other country on the planet ever has, in a far shorter amount of time than any country has ever had.
Well, it's funny how it turns out. It's funny how it turns out that you get a lot of things done and you're not siphoning all the profits off.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's weird when you can make sure that you arrange, when you plan your economy around success first, and then whatever's left over, you capitalist dogs can fight over. It's weird what you accomplish. You know, the Europeans practice a type of socialism that is different. It is more, by comparison, it is less authoritarian, although they are, they're unfortunately shifting towards a more authoritarian model. They have not accomplished that, and yet I would still happily call them socialists, right? They use a form of socialism in that they have a floor price of human existence.
Right. You can go to any hospital. There is an expectation of labor wages being set above a livable wage, blah, 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 blah.
Right. There's an expectation of some sort of prosperity, and where they cannot meet that, there are social programs to fill in the gap. Now, capitalism has those, although capitalism's preferred model is charity, right? You have to know that you're a failure. That's what charity's for. I mean, the reason you pick charity over that is you have to know who's doing better than you. Under the more theocratic modes of existence like monarchy, the purpose of charity was to let you know how generous your king was, so you had to be even more loyal to the king to access that charity, or you would just starve more, right? I mean, that was good.
The elite.
Say that again?
It sort of still acts similar, but it's used more to wash someone's clear faults away, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it is a twofold cleansing purpose, right? On the one hand, it is to let you know that you are a failure, and on the other hand, it is to let everybody feel good about themselves because they were so nice that they picked and chose a charity they cared about and then donated money to it. It's socialists are not fans of charity. We are fans of redistribution. If you wanted to be very succinct, right? If you wanted to be very simple, we would rather just make society behave in the way we want. Whether or not that's by authoritarian means, I mean, the job's got to get done. We would prefer not to have individuals essentially, shaming individuals for needing help. We would rather take away the burdens that cause them to need help in the first place and set them on equal footing. Does that mean some people are going to do better than others? Obviously. But does that mean the floor price to human existence is squalor, suffering, and a constant reminder that you fucking suck? No. We'll just take away any condition under which you could suck. We'll just eliminate that instead. Right?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. Cenk, to your original point, the people who would scream socialist and fascist, it's because both are underpinned by collectivism, and that is a violent rejection of both. That's it. it's continuing that line. Essentially, you see that a lot more from two groups of people, the very, very rich and the very, very poor, right? The very, very rich because the idea is abhorrent that you would take my money away from me that I stole. At least in the opinion of the socialists, it's theft. I would say that Marx's theory work is sound and proves it beyond a shadow of a doubt that is theft. In the case of the very, very poor, you talking like that, it's kind of funny. I know I'm a fucking loser, right? But if you say shit like that, then I'm reminded I'm a fucking loser under this system, and I don't want to think that I'm losing the game. It's a type of deflection mentality. I know I fucking suck under this system, but if I admit it, then it really stings because I'm forced to reconcile the fact that under this system, my life is shit and meaningless. I don't want to do that, ergo, I reject all that collectivist bullshit, and I can pretend I'm doing the best I can and succeeding in lieu of feeling like a fucking failure in abject squalor, which is what is really happening thanks to capitalism. Like, your life really is that miserable. I understand it's easier to run away from it than it is to like accept that. Like, that sucks, right? Some people don't want to admit that, and it sucks, but it's I don't know. I think living honestly is superior. I think that gives you the chance to get out of the suckage. But whatever, right? It's like Squid Game. I didn't watch Squid Game, but I don't think I need to watch Squid Game. It's not for me because I can understand the reason they're all in Squid Game is because they're all fucking losers for some reason or the other, and they need money.
Okay.
Good news. It's just capitalism.
Okay.
It's just that bloodthirsty. Problem
Thank
solved.
God, I was worried.
Yeah. It's not a show for me. I know this. I didn't need my stories to tell me this. I knew it already. I'm gonna go back to The Simpsons now.
Well, see, now we're talking about, or now I would have to disagree with it being a function. Okay. We can keep moving.
Wait, what?
It's more of an entertaining thriller kind of situation. It's better when the stakes are like more real,
Yeah, but my point is like I'm not gonna watch stuff like that because I already know that lesson. So it's not like it doesn't thrill me. I did my theory homework. I don't need a story to tell me it.
Well, it's real in the story. Like understanding the theory of it, it's basically just like a suspense thriller. It's a lot like you remember when the Hunger Games came out?
Yeah.
And
I watch that shit.
Constant roller coaster of suspense and tension and dramatic things happening with that major reality that they have in games and media now. It's basically the next thing that has that in in a really compelling way. It's the execution, not the theory.
Again, since I already know that shit, nothing of that is compelling to me. I did my homework. These things are not compelling.
And that's fine. I'm just saying it's the execution that people are there for.
Oh yeah, I understand completely. It's for people who do not understand this for whatever dumb fucking reason, and then suddenly like, yeah, it's a really compelling story. I understand the reason they make that shit is ultimately so they're like, see, your life isn't that fucking bad.
Imagine you could be in a Squid Game.
Yeah, you could be stuck in a fucking Squid Game. Yeah, like I said, I know what's going on. That's why it's not for me. I'm acutely like 5 years now. I've been doing this show, man. I know these things don't excite me like they do other people. Because again, how many times have I berated you all with the homework?
None. You never berate me with homework. What are you talking about?
I do all the time. Oh my God.
I don't remember a single time you've told me to do my homework.
Well, that's true. I haven't told you to do it, but I berate you with the homework I've done.
Oh. I've never paid attention to a single thing of homework you've done.
And that's why I had to keep yelling at you. Week in, week out. But yeah, that's it. Shit like that, not for me. Not my bag. I don't extract any value out of it because again, like can't you know what? Can I just take cultural credit for a moment? The ending of fucking Game of Thrones was weird. They're like, Westeros is democracy, except the North, motherfucker. And everyone's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything about that was fucking weird.
The directors were basically
They were what now?
they were trying to move. They were trying to move on to their next project.
Yeah.
So they basically gave up the show and was like, "Well, we got like one season left. Let's just go ahead and end this real quick." So they half-assed it all the way through, and it pissed everybody off. And
110%.
that's why you get things like that, because that whole ending season was just, it doesn't even feel like the same show.
To me, it
And
felt
then
exactly the same. It just felt like the dumb version.
I love that that's how that ended, because it's just funny because they went off and to do other things, but none of it was even half as good as what Game of Thrones was. Like immediate flops out the. But that's that capitalism, buddy. They're looking at that money, that next contract, you know.
Yeah.
We're the directors of Game of Thrones.
I can do my pet project about a comical dog in space and his whimsical cat pal.
Call it Heathcliff. I mean, you got to change the name.
Shit.
Call it Garfield. I mean, you got to change that name. Oh.
Yeah. I'm sure it will not at all shock you that Game of Thrones was not for me either. I was not entertained by Game of Thrones.
Oh, so you just don't like any of the more brutal media coming out lately?
No, I don't. I always called Game of Thrones was the stab rape drama, and it was the medieval version of the like Walking Dead, which was the gun rape drama.
Mm-hmm.
I like when people are like, I find this so compelling, and I'm like, okay, within the next 4 episodes, somebody's getting raped, and they're like, shut the fuck up. And then like I said, like I can predict it down to 4 episodes. I know when there's a rape coming. I'm like,
well, I mean, seeing as how seasons are like 10 episodes, you've got a pretty good window at 4.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those came out, and I didn't see it coming either. Like, I mean, a lot of them were predictable, but then a couple of them you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, but it's always a stab.
I wasn't ready for that.
You know. And the fight, like the other thing is like when I'm really. Let me put it to you like this: this is my nice version of the commentary on those shows, because normally I call them dipshit gunshot rape dramas, and it's not dipshit because of the viewers per se. It's a dipshit move because like. The minute you know somebody's gonna die, the minute they start acting fucking stupid, not with hubris, but just dumb, just fucking dumb. I'm like, okay, they're gonna die soon.
After decides to kill them off, is the moment they decide that they don't really need to put that much attention into them.
No, I'm not gonna say they're made by AI, but I wouldn't be surprised by that.
I would be more creative, honestly.
You think an AI would be more creative? I don't. I think it would be less creative.
Sure. I mean, depending on what they seeded it with, but I mean, you have the occasional left curveball, but with something like lazy writing, you know, there's no curveballs ever.
Yeah. No, I'm a fan of the classic brutality. The new modern brutality. Yeah. When liberals got a hold of brutality, no thank you. I was out.
It's a rejection of.
What's that?
It's a rejection to the stories in which you know that nothing is going to happen to any of the characters ever because of reasons.
Right. Purely economic reasons. Like, that does not help. That is not in their favor when it comes to my tastes. The fact that it's always in support, like, all the violence is essentially in support of some liberal or libertarian ideology. You know, like, the libertarians and the liberals are always right, despite the fact their decision-making is, like, ridiculously fucking stupid.
It'd get big if it wasn't.
Right. Well, yes, that's a fact. It would not resonate with audiences of fucking awful liberals and awful libertarians if it did not let them clap along. Steve Hofstetter syndrome.
Like Squid Games got away with some stuff that I didn't think they would get away with,
No, I have
and
less.
still be that.
In my opinion,
But
yeah. Yeah, it's also because it's made for like the Asian market. It's not made for the white market. It's just plastered over the white market.
well, the Asian market knows that they can plaster over the white market, so they do the Asian market the way they do it for the reason.
Right. Yeah, there's no point in appealing to the white man. The white man will consume it up if it's of alleged caliber, right? Once it meets certain level of caliber characteristics, yeah, it'll be fine. They'll eat it up.
They're copying the scale. They're copying the stylistic trappings while actually having substance because they have something to say. And the white men are just come and steal it anyway. So
yeah, we better make our money off it before the white men steal it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, this is gonna sound really hurtful, but like, all those liberal gunshot dramas have something to say. I just don't want to hear it.
Oh, for sure, but I'm saying that saying something is better than saying nothing.
I like outside of like Super Milk Chat is where I feel like you've said nothing, but I enjoy that because like you weren't trying to say anything and you meant it. That hard nothing is what you have. Like that saying nothing. All those artists are saying something, and most of them are saying is like, "I'm a good liberal capitalist. Give me money." So like, it's just, yeah, it's just the message sucks. Like
it was all NCIS and action movies, 24/7 in this fucking country.
Ooh, yes, okay. Action movies say nothing except for Vin Diesel's love of family in the Fast and Furious.
Yeah, obviously.
I was actually really shocked at horror movies having things to say. I didn't notice that until I noticed it, and I was like, "Oh, these are tight."
Yeah, I do enjoy a good horror movie. I do enjoy those.
They're just injecting horror movie into our stories.
Yeah, but it waters it down in a really weird way.
Oh yeah, you gotta have like 50 sequels of a horror movie. What kind of horror movie doesn't have 50 parts?
Yeah, I agree.
How is it a horror movie? It doesn't water itself down. That's the problem.
Look, if I don't see Jason jumping a shark, I'm done.
I am out, sir. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of negative reactions to television. I don't think the golden age of TV is all.
Oh yeah, that's the worst. I don't know. I don't know anyone who watches that anymore.
They shouldn't.
Maybe sports season.
Yeah, they really shouldn't. You shouldn't be watching TV. TV's for chumps. The Loud House is good. It pisses off the conservatives, so the Loud House is a-okay. And the spin-off show, that pisses them off. You can watch that. The Simpsons, old Simpsons is still good.
If it's not worth downloading, then like a solo, then you probably shouldn't even be watching it. Really,
right. I'm trying to think. Steven Universe is worth watching. Again, it just makes conservatives mad because it's nice. It's just a nice thing.
They do hate nice things.
They do hate all the nice things.
Good intentions, protecting kids.
Yeah.
Positive role models who are different than me.
Humans? What the
I don't like this.
Queer role.
Yeah. My only two criticisms of Steven Universe are, one, they are overly obsessed with the notion of trauma, and two, Steven was gay with his dad. That was weird.
That is weird.
That was weird.
And not in the way that we always joke about it.
Yeah, like he was gay with his dad, and that was like that. I didn't like, and like when you're like, well, oh wait, he fused with Pearl, and those are all surrogate moms. All you people do is mommy post. We all love a MILF. Pearl is obviously queen of the MILFs, her and Garnet. Nobody cares that you're fucking your hot adopted aunt. Nobody gives a shit. Let's be real. Nobody cared. That's fine. Nothing gross about that. Everybody was legal. It was all cool. You fucking weirdo.
You haven't.
Who doesn't want to fuck Pearl or Garnet? That's all I'm saying. You show me that, I will show you a genuinely gay man. I will show you the gay cishet male. That's it. Who doesn't want to fuck Pearl or Garnet? But Steven being gay with his dad, not for me. Not my taste. Because that's.
His dad was.
Did you see that episode?
He's weird too.
Oh, Greg rocks, dude. You find a fucking tall ass. He found a big titty mommy, and he was like, "I'm gonna knock that up."
I know what I'm about.
man, I found a big titty bisexual mommy. I'm gonna get that pregnant, man. Greg's my guy. Greg is my guy. He's my dude. Give me all the Greg screen time, please. Except that one. Yeah. I'm sorry, you are cutting bad. I don't know what it is.
Oh. I don't really know what to do.
Is it talk into the mic?
I'm talking into the mic as best I can.
You're doing wonderful.
It does what it wants to, and I'm stuck.
Yeah. It misbehaves on you. I know. I'm picking. Fuck you, Dan.
Yeah, that was basically how that went.
I know. Well, I'm translating it for people who don't know our dynamic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving away my game, sir.
Well, game has to recognize game, and I already give the game away every week. It's the capitalist fault.
Someone should do something about that.
Someone really should. There are a bunch of rich people stealing from you. Somebody ought to do something about that, is all I'm saying.
Ugh, we got fascists fighting fascists out here. It's dangerous.
Yeah. All right, we got about 7 minutes to fill. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, the Ukraine war is still happening, and that's a tragedy.
It's a terrible tragedy.
That's
still happening.
Yep.
World War III is probably going to happen because of it.
It could.
No.
It's definitely not. Let's go with it's definitely not helping the odds.
Oh no. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's I have kind of a bold take on that. I don't think the Second World War has ever ended.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, that was actually a really interesting take.
Yeah, if we think about it, right? So we did a period of hot fighting up until what? We did a hot period of fighting until 45, and then we go immediately into the Cold War period, right? But there was still actual military fighting over the colonies at that point, right? And then we move into, of course, like from the American side, we move into backing Vietnam, or backing the French in Vietnam and backing the South Koreans, right? So we move to another period of hot fighting. And then we spend a lot of time running those Gladio operations and committing violence. And then we move into the hot period of Vietnam. And then we shift away.
Here for a minute. That's like 80 fucking things.
Yeah, we have not been in a period of peace this entire time. Since hostilities were openly declared in 39, we've never had a period of peace. So like when we talk about World War II ending, I don't know if we should. I have to warn you, I was trained briefly as a historian. I am not a proper historian. But my gut feeling is that we're looking at that situation all wrong and that we've never stopped living in World War II. We've never stopped living in a war economy. We've never transitioned out of that war economy. We've molded our economic actions around that war economy, but we've never actually left it. So I remain skeptical that we have left the period of global war, especially because there are wars across the fucking globe right now, right? I don't.
A secret war.
Yeah, I just don't. Fucking, let alone actual peace. I'm really racking my brains here, and I'm trying to think of a year where war was contained to like just 2 participants, and I'm drawing a big fucking blank. Like, I can't think of a time that war was just limited to 2 belligerents only.
Was that situation also applied to before the World War?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, like, it may be fair to say, since a certain, like, there's a cutoff in human history where it's just been a period of perpetual war. As far as that goes, I suppose, like, I guess when I'm going to make the defining line, if I'm going to pick my arbitrary cutoff point, it is the final transition after World War I, with the death knell of the old monarchistic orders, like the final death of the monarchy, and the transition to capitalists running the world, which immediately, like, it took them. If we make a hard cap on that as 1920, it took them 19 years to go back into a state of total warfare, just now from the lens of capitalist nation states in their proper form, as opposed to these monarchistic empires, right? These imperial orders. If you had to put a gun to my head, that is where I would draw the line. For my thesis that World War II has never actually ended.
I think you're trying too hard.
I don't think I am.
I think the I don't know if actually World War. It's always been World War.
Well, the world's always been at war, but the definitions of belligerence is what I'm going off of.
And we were just really amped up after World War II, and we never really got our rocks off. So
yeah,
we tried to take a couple cold war showers. Didn't work so well for us.
Didn't help.
Didn't help. Not one bit.
Didn't help.
America, the eager beaver.
What's that?
Said America, the eager beaver.
Yeah, the eager beaver. Overly horny incel America. You reflect the country you have, is all I'm saying. You don't get around that. But yeah, like, if you were to say, like, well, okay, but in the 1700s, all these countries were fighting. Those countries were by and large nothing like a modern nation state. They really, I mean, these are empires that are fighting, and they certainly did their fair share of brutality, their fair share of making sure peace only existed outside of where wealth was, right? Or certainly eliminated wealth where they showed up for the benefit of other people who extracted wealth from that war scenario. Fair. All of that is entirely fair. But the definition I'm going to use to make a distinction, so I'm not just saying World War has never ended, which I don't think if we're talking about the material conditions is particularly helpful. The line I'm going to use is the death of empires versus the rise of capitalist nation states. That's and that line is roughly 1920. right? Your first attempt at the League of Nations, a lot of these imperial orders being dethroned or defanged. That's where I feel comfortable making that assessment. Let me put it to you like that. I feel comfortable with saying that's our line. If we're trying to conceptualize this, that's where I'm okay with it. And you can go, well, that just fits your narrative. Fair enough. It does. It really does.
And that's the way we like it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to have a narrative if you haven't established something to fit your narrative, right? If the facts of the matter don't fit your narrative, then...
Well, I mean, if the facts of the matter don't fit your narrative, you probably have the wrong narrative, right?
Yeah, you probably have the wrong
You
narrative.
would change your opinion.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing... If we were perpetually belligerent after World War II and just simply shifted the battle lines, in that conception, what doesn't that explain, right? We all talk about how we shifted from loving the Soviets to being enemies with the Soviets after the fascists were defeated and acquired and turned into assets, not enemies. Weird how that line works. And at that point, the battle lines were redrawn because we just... from where I'm sitting, it just looks like we just picked up the fascist cause then. We just were like, Hitler crawled so we could walk, if you will. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up. That's what happened. In my conception of history, at least. That's where we're at. Hitler crawled so we could walk, and then here we are today. The Nazis won. Woo. There's certainly an odd amount of Nazis for something we completely stamped out and had the ability to just oppress the shit out of. There's a weird amount of them we're supposed to give equal time to. And we're supposed to treat their issues as if they were sanguine, realistic issues, not the laughable jokes of an insane loser who needs to be punched in the face again for even bothering to speak up.
Listen, I've had a long-standing policy on that.
Have other people punch Nazis for you.
You're very close somehow.
And tonight's special guest is Talia Levine, folks. It's berate other people when they don't punch Nazis for you. And do nothing to enable them doing the punching, right?
You're getting further away.
Oh. I'm sorry. Talia must have had a change of heart.
Well, yeah. I've been told that I shouldn't be voicing my opinion about that on the show, so I'll leave it at that.
Does it sound something like got his ass?
I don't find that as satisfying. I wouldn't complain too much. I'm not gonna weep over it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, they're not people.
Sure.
When you're talking about dehumanization, there's only one group you can dehumanize. They're Nazis. Because they're not people. It's like, it's just like any other rabid animal. Like, it's sad, it's tragic, but it is diseased.
It's a very clever trick they pull.
Yeah.
Looking like people.
It is a rude trick they pull trying to look like people. They sound like people. In some ways, they act like people. And yet, Nazis are not people. Deal with that. I'm gonna take you want me to take the cancelable stance now? When
Yes. What?
Awesome.
I am amused.
When the Ukrainian conflict was reduced to Russia dumping its Nazis into Ukraine and Ukrainian Nazis fighting Russian Nazis, I didn't give two shits. Because there was no discernible reason why I should care. When that fighting shifted over to Ukrainian civilians being the target of belligerents at the hands of a power who dumped their Nazis into a region to do killing, that's exactly when I gave a shit. Yeah. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm really pissed off some Republicans like that. Do I care about that?
That's jalapeno spicy. Some white people will find it particularly hot.
Oh, there's like, you're talking about a genocide. I'm like, I don't see any genocide. Like, what the fuck?
Hard for the Slavs to genocide themselves, but if the Jews can self-hate, why not? Why can't the Slavs self-genocide? Why not? I guarantee damn well to you, you're going to hit for Ukrainian misinformation, even though we explicitly said the problem is when it shifted away from Nazis killing Nazis. They'll be like, there were no fucking Nazis. That's what all the fact checkers are going to put under our post. There are no fucking Nazis there. Azov Battalion. Fucking, it's so well known it's on the goddamn wiki. This is not esoteric information. And this is one of those times where the liberals who would say wiki it and learn something would absolutely say Wikipedia is not a source. Weird how Wikipedia is not a source whenever it says something you don't like. It's weird. You can go baseline educate yourself in the situation. And it is regrettable that it has evolved into this fucking horrific war. I'm on it. All right. And with that, I'm good. I'm Dan. If you guys want to close out the show, I love you all. Don't die. And help the people of Ukraine as you can. And, death to Azov Battalion.
In America.
Good night. We love you.